Hello and welcome to the WR Women's Chess Tour. This is the Asia Qualifier. My name is Fiona Steil-Antoni. I'm delighted to be your host today. You might be watching this on the WR YouTube channel or on my personal Twitch page. I will be keeping an eye on both of those chats. So feel free to send me any messages, any questions. I'm very excited to be here today to cover this final stage of the online qualifier. This was an online qualifier that ran through 3 different stages. First an arena, then a Swiss tournament, and then today finally only 8 players are left and they are battling for that #1 spot, which will get them an invite to the Asia event that has been announced for Tokyo, Japan on 6th, 7th of June. So very, very exciting stuff indeed. A lot has been said online about how Japan hasn't really had any top events yet, especially not when it comes to women. So all that is happening right now is very exciting. Just last night, the second leg for the Americas was announced for Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic. There will be the European leg in Saint-Tropez, south of France, at the end of August, and one final event is set for Africa before we get a big final at the end of the year. This really feels like a new time for chess and for women's chess in particular. In terms of the tournament in Tokyo, Japan, 4 players have already been invited. Vaishali Ramesh Babu, the winner of the recent Women's Candidates Tournament, Alexandra Kosteniuk, Antoinetta Stefanova, and Katerina Lagno. So we are getting moves now. Before we jump into that, maybe let's just take a very quick look at who is playing today. So we have 2 big names there at the top. Alua Nurman taking on Dinara, Wagner. We also have Hakobyan against Gupta, Sargsyan against Avramidou, and Pandey against Dehankar. As you can see, some of those names are a little bit more established than others, but in a format like today, anything is possible, really. The players will play a best of 4, and I think we are gonna start by following the match between Alua Nurman and Dinara Wagner. Both of these are established title players, international masters. Alua Nurman has been making a lot of waves recently. Both of them qualified at the recent Kränke tournament to the Freestyle World Championship for next year, and now they are trying to add another qualifier, another championship that they want to compete in. I haven't actually, I realized, decided if we should have a bar on. I think I'm gonna turn on the engine so that we can follow the gameplay. What I should do though is remove the arrows. Let me just bear with me for a second, and we will turn on the evaluation bar. So the time control is 3+2. It is a best of 4. These are the quarterfinals, and of course, especially with the white pieces here, Alua Nurman is gonna try to get off to a fast start, and we have a very unusual pawn structure already here over on the king side. For now, the black king remains in the center, undecided as to where it will go. We see that Dinara is taking a little bit of time here. Knowing Dinara, she must be quite happy with her position. It's definitely a very double-edged position. This king on g1 could be looking rather lonely in some cases. There might be some ideas of sacrificing on h4 at some point in the future. Of course, also an idea to bring the rook into the game via h6, potentially g6, and there is no doubt in my mind that Dinara is looking at these possibilities right now. The problem is that she is gonna have to make up her mind quite soon, as she is dropping towards the 1 minute mark very quickly, and there she goes, pushing her pawn to e4. And pushing the pawn to e4 frees up a big square for the knight on e5. From there, the knight will be eyeing up f3 for sure, and it is clear everything that Dinara is doing here revolves around the white king. That is the target. Meanwhile, the question for white, what is white going to do? White might bring action with f4, and f4 is going to ask a lot more questions. Do you take that pawn en passant, which is what Dinara has decided to do, and in comes the knight to that beautiful e5 square. e5 is a wonderful outpost for the black knight. The only concern, as I said, is that the king and queen are still stuck on that file. Let me see, there we go. We should now be able to hear the move sounds as well. And hello, by the way, to everyone in the chat. I think in a second, you know, when everything is properly on the way, I'll be able to interact a bit more with chat. But for now, we're going to see the first game of this four-game quarter final. After rook e1, okay, Dinara has at last gotten the king out of the center. She did castle kingside. Both players now under a minute on the clock. Alua certainly still under some pressure here. In fact, more than just pressure. Computer screaming out for bishop d3 to be played. I really prefer the long-term chances of Dinara. I think it will be so hard, especially as the time gets lower and lower, to play with a king that is still quite open on g1. Meanwhile, we can see the black counterpart on g8 looking rather much more safe. So let's see if Dinara can convert her advantage here. Let's not forget as well that she is playing with the black pieces, and starting a four-game match with a black win is always going to make you a big favorite immediately. Also, bear in mind, these are the two strongest players in the field today. This was drawn not at random, but the knockout pairings were based upon the final standings of the Swiss qualifier from 3 days ago. And Dinara once again rearranging her pieces. She does, of course, not want to trade queens, and we can see that the queen is in fact now once again looking down towards the white king. But I would say that Alua is doing a great job right now of holding things together. She also, let's not forget, if she can get some trades, she will have two outside pass pawns on the queen side. The only question is, will she be able to get those trades without her king running into some serious trouble? First, we see both players have doubled their rooks on the e5, but now the rook from e2 forced to move, which relinquishes the defense of the pawn on a2. If Dinara is feeling a little greedy, she could simply go and capture that, but instead the moves are coming in so fast that computer struggling to keep up. Instead, we saw a trade of all four rooks, and that, without a shadow of a doubt, is in favor of the young Kazakh player, who now suddenly, with only two minor pieces and queens left on the board, her king should be rather safe now. And as we said, she did have those two extra pawns on the queen side, so the tide has turned completely here, and Dinara is down 2 seconds. The moves are coming in too fast to follow them properly, but look at what has happened. Suddenly both pawns survived and the a-pawn has started making a run for it. What does Alua now? Does she want to exchange the knight for the bishop? I think white is the only one who's gonna be able to play for a win, but no longer, as after queen e4 the pawn is going to drop this endgame. It should be a draw at the end of the day after quite some adventures. This is the last game going, so we did pick the right game to follow. I say the game is still going. The moves are coming in batches, so it is a little bit tricky to follow all the action, but in the end, a draw by repetition was agreed here. What a fight. Dinara Wagner with the better chances in the middle game, then Alua probably missing some chances as well, and in the end, a draw in the other games. We saw a win for Mrudul Dehankar against Pandey Srishti. I have to admit that I'm not too familiar with these two Indian Women International Masters, but we will certainly get to know them better throughout the day. Then in the clash between Shubhi Gupta and Astghik Hakobyan, we saw a win for Shubhi, and finally in the game between Sargsyan against Anastasia, Avramidou, the American player has taken the lead. And let me see if the games have already started. I guess it doesn't matter how many games I input. Doesn't look like. Okay. I think the second game hasn't started yet. Should start momentarily. So 3 players trailing as we go into game 2, and we all have a moment to catch our breath once again. So I'll just recap the format for anyone who might have joined a little bit later. By the end of this Asia online qualifier, and I would say roughly 3 hours from now, we will know who wins the ticket to join Vaishali, to join Kostanjuk, Stefanova and Lagno. Those are the 4 players that have been announced so far. The winner of this qualifier today will have their tickets paid, will be invited to play in Tokyo, Japan. So a huge opportunity for one of the 8 players who have qualified so far. Maybe I can find out if there is a schedule. For everyone watching on my own stream, you guys will know that anything to do with tech setup isn't my forte, but I don't think we are missing any games at the moment. Oh no, we are very much missing some games. They have just started. Maybe for the second round, I'm gonna suggest that we follow Sargsyan, who won the first game against Avramidou. And so Avramidou now is going to look to strike back with the white pieces. From the get-go here, we have a rather quiet opening compared to the one we saw in the first game. White has fianchettoed her bishop to g2 from where we can see it now, putting pressure down the long diagonal. Black was taking a little bit of time to figure out how to respond. And much like in the previous game, we see a little bit of knight maneuvering with the knight from f3 dropping back to d2. That knight is most likely headed towards e4, where it will potentially look at getting rid of the dark squared bishops, but also potentially just look to put some pressure on the black queen side. White also doesn't have to play this move immediately, although she does. Black says, I do not want to give up my bishop, I will move it towards e5, and from there the bishop can always drop back to c7 later. For now, black has the bishop pair here. We can see the computer giving black a little bit of advantage already, so Sargsyan surely very happy here with the outcome of the opening, and white will have to make something happen quite soon. She is probably debating playing b4 immediately, but of course she has to figure out first of all what will be the consequences. On our YouTube channel over at WR Chess Masters, if anyone there wants on our YouTube channel over at WR Chess Masters, if anyone there wants to say hello in the stream to let me know you're there, I would appreciate that. We can maybe get a bit of interaction going over on there as well. Meanwhile, we have seen the trades happening here. Well, I say the trades. After queen takes, white is currently a pawn down, but she is going to get that pawn back on b7, and we suddenly have a very, very double-edged position now that that f pawn has been trussed forward as well. That indicates some intentions of at some point in the future potentially moving the pawn one square forward. Once the rook takes on b7, it will be beautifully placed along the 7th rank. I feel like the tide is turning. We can see that Anna is probably not completely comfortable, as there is quite a big time difference here between the two players, with Anna being down over a minute on the clock, currently thinking where to move her queen to. She dropped it back to e7. Rook b7 was the automatic response, and now the question is how to deal with this bishop, which is under attack. Rook c8 looks like a logical move here. And I'm curious to see how Anastasia is going to continue. There's one move here. This is the top move, but I like queen a1 a lot, putting pressure both on d4 and on a7, and additionally preparing to maybe double the rooks on the f-file. That pawn in the future could move forward, but could also very well just stay here. I mean, it did chase away the bishop. It limits the dark squared bishop. Oh, Maripan, thank you so much for letting me know that on YouTube. Channel subscribers will have been subscribed to 5 minutes or longer before they can send messages. So that is good to know. And meanwhile, the bishop has been double defended, first by the rook, then by the queen dropping back. I'm curious what future Anastasia envisions for this knight. It will, in the long term, I'm sure, be used to put pressure on this pawn on d4. Another reason f4 was a great idea. Makes it a bit harder for black to push e5. We can now see that Anastasia has tripled up on the b file, but black honestly has done a great job of keeping things together, and I think trades will definitely favor black. Black has a trump of having this outside pass pawns. Black still has the trump of the bishop pair, so it makes sense that Anna is doing her best to trade as many pieces as possible. And now it is Anastasia who's gone into the tank. The rooks have come off. As we can see, computer thinks this is a roughly balanced position. I have to say, in the long term, I'm sure if Anastasia could, she would love to maybe drop that pawn back, because the king is looking rather open, and what thrives in open positions, of course, it is the bishop pair. And this one is really turning round. Can Anna take a 2-0 lead here? One pair of bishops have come off. That is gonna make it harder, I would say, for black to win. But still, if I had to pick, I would play black, and suddenly the pawn is only 4 squares away from queening. Queen and knight are a tricky attacking pair, though. I was gonna say I wouldn't be shocked if white at least finds a perpetual somewhere. But bishop b6 blocked the path for the queen to give that check. And black is making progress once again. The moves are coming in fast. Anastasia made her move on 1 second. I wouldn't be shocked if we see some people flag today. But not here just yet. The pawn, though, it has come all the way up, just 1 square away. And in fact, the pawn can become a new queen right now. Cannot be captured by the knight. The queen would have been hanging. And if that pawn was captured by the queen, the knight would have been hanging. So a little bit of a missed opportunity, but the position remains winning for white. The only question is, will she be able to hold her nerve? Will she not flag? After bishop g1. No, the game is still not over. Once again, we have successfully picked the last game that was still going. We'll get to see the results of the other games in a second. And in comes f5. King is out in the open. The pawn is still alive, still 1 square away from queening, but the game is not over just yet. If white manages to capture this pawn, or if white manages to start giving some checks against the black king, a very nervy finish here. King is going to have to move. Oh, and white did actually lose on time after the check. It was looking for a while like somebody might not make it in this time scramble, and in this case it is Anna Sargsyan who takes a 2-point lead in their match. Elsewhere, Alua Nurman, after drawing the first game, won game 2 against Dinara Wagner, taking a lead in that quarterfinal. And then Shubhi Gupta takes a 2-0 lead, which means that Astghik Hakobyan is already in a must-win situation in game 3. And I think we will be following that. Meanwhile, in the match, Dehankar against Srishti, Srishti has won there and tied the score at 1-all. And so, as I said, okay, no boards yet. As I said, we will be following now for the next game, I would say, Gupta, Shubhi Gupta against Astghik Hakobyan, as the Armenian woman FIDE master is in a must-win situation here after losing the first 2 games to her opponent. So I'm just gonna go back again. I think if we stay on this page, they will just appear. That's the hope. Yeah, I always get some lag when I start the stream. I think everything should be good now. Let me know if there are any major issues. I'm in fact not certain if the end of the game scrambles, if they are caused by my computer or if they are caused by too many moves coming in too fast. I will. Oh, that's a very good point. My name is Legion. Let me actually do that. The number of threads. And I think 2 should be enough. And search time. Okay. So we're looking at the game between Hakobyan and Shubhi, where Hakobyan is in a must-win situation. A lot of pieces have been traded nice and early here into the game, but oof. Things have already gone very wrong here for Astghik, as suddenly this bishop will be trapped on the next move with the c4 push, but okay, so what was the line here? If queen takes, queen b6, king moves, bishop b7, the queen was gonna be trapped. That was missed by Shubhi. She was probably planning to play c4 here, thinking bishop e6 was a nice Zwischenzug, but c4 is now going to be met by f5. Black still objectively doing well, but things are getting a little bit tricky. Remember though that Hakobyan, she needs a win. She's trailing 2-0 in the match. Thank you so much. My name is Legion for helping me out there on the tech front. And yeah, I think Shubhi Gupta in control here in this game, needing only a draw. It's very hard to see how white is going to try and make something happen on the king side. This formation is ever so slightly vulnerable. Will it be enough though? Find it hard to believe. Anyway, black is first to jump forward with the knight hitting the queen. Also looking down at g2, white probably, black has a mind, I guess, to play queen e2, or is she simply going to start grabbing the pawn on e4? All of those look tempting. Instead, the queens came off, but so did the pawn on e6. I think this was simply missed. Oops, excuse me. I think this was simply missed by Shubhi Gupta, and suddenly the knight cannot be captured, the rook would be hanging. So white picks up a big pawn here. Black has to deal with the threat towards the knight. Only way to survive is to counterattack the knight on e6, but it looks to me like Hakobyan is gonna get the first part of the job done here and get the first win out of 2 that she is looking for to equalize the match. By the way, if the match ends in a 2-2 tie, the players will be going straight to Armageddon. It will be a very classical Armageddon format. 5 minutes for white, 4 minutes for black. White in a must-win situation. I'm sure we'll see at least one Armageddon decider today. Armageddon's always so much fun to I think to follow as a chess fan. I think playing them is rather rather stressful. But watching them is fun. The players will choose the color based on the standings from the Swiss qualifier event. So rook c5, and suddenly black is drumming up a whole lot of counterplay, and it looks like that very likely will be the end of the road for Hakobyan. Every trade, unfortunately, unfortunately for Hakobyan, brings black closer to that desired draw. The rook on e2 is a beast on the second rank, preventing the king from joining the action. But it ain't over until it's over. Is black just going to try and hoover up all the pawns? Or is black... I see the computer suggesting rook a7, which was probably related to the idea of bringing both rooks to the second rank. But what she has done will also get the job done. I expect... Well, actually, let's do h6 first to defend the pawn on g5. And now with the king coming to g6, the f6 pawn is going to drop. And once that pawn is gone, that is the end of any hopes, unfortunately, for the Armenian player, who is going to be knocked out right here and now in game 3 of the quarterfinals. The send game here, of course, is going to lead to a draw. I am shocked that black hasn't just captured the pawn yet. Well, this will do the job as well. We'll get a draw. Kudos to Shubhi Gupta, a player, once again, I have to admit I'm not too familiar with. Let's go and check in with the end of Alua Nurman against Dinara Wagner, and Alua Nurman has eliminated Dinara Wagner. She had taken a lead in game 2. She now wins game 3 with a checkmate, moves to 2.5. That's good enough for a place in the semi-finals. And the last game that is still going is Sargsyan, who also only needs a draw to advance, but Anastasia Avramidou is fighting. We have an opposite color bishop endgame where black has an extra pawn. I'm just trying to take stock of the position, but I think after this last move, the question is, how does white defend the pawn on c4? If that pawn gets pushed, we now see Anastasia is activating her king. I'm still not sure where the breakthrough is going to come from, but I suspect that maybe at some point black will be able to I was gonna say maybe get the rooks up, get the king in, but this much more brutal way of doing things is going to get the job done immediately after rook takes. Well, I was gonna say show what would have happened if the rook was well captured. We'll get to that once the game ends. But with this pawn just 2 squares away from queening, this game is going to be over now as Sargsyan resigns and Anastasia makes it interesting for game 4, suddenly just trailing by 1 point. She got 1 win, she will need another in game 4. Meanwhile, in the Indian clash between Pandey and Mrudul, things are still even. They started with 1 win each. This last game ended peacefully. Let's just look at the final few moves here. It looks like they simply repeated moves. in this position, which I think Srishti will be kicking herself if she reviews this game. Hopefully for her sake, I would not advise her to review the game before the last one, but a very promising position if we can trust the clocks. A minute up on the clock as well, so slightly surprising maybe that she was happy to repeat moves. Everything will be on the line in game 4 here. We will follow those players, but once again, congratulations first of all to Alua Nurman, who is through to the semi-finals, and congratulations to Shubhi Gupta, who is also through to the semi-finals. And we are gonna wait now for game 4. Only 2 spots left. Who is going to grab them? Are we going to see an Armageddon game? We will find out momentarily. Let me know, by the way, in the chat today. Maripant was here, and oh, WRHS was here in the chat earlier saying hello as well. So it looks like the chat is working. Everything. I'm probably a bit late to notice that everything is working, but better late than never. And what do we think? Let me know in the chat. Are we going to get an Armageddon game in one of the 2 matches? In one of them we have a player in a must-win situation, in the other everything on the line. So let me know, what are your predictions for game 4? Okay, 50 seconds to go. And I think for the last game we will follow the Indian clash first of all. Those are the only 2 girls we haven't seen any games of yet. And also that is the only remaining match that is currently tied, so we're gonna focus on that when it starts 30 seconds from now. I think one of the interesting questions is, how do the players deal with the very short breaks in between the games? Do they try to just relax? Do they check their games? There are different approaches, but I think in a format like today that is very, very quick, let's face it, while 4 games is a decent number of games, 3 + 2 is a quick time control, of course, and there's very little time for reflection between, and then the next match follows. If you win this one, you qualify to the semi-finals, potentially to the finals. So I think it's all about trying to clear your mind, trying to stay fresh. But let's follow Mrudul and Pandey now. Let's remind everyone, this match is currently tied 1.5 all. If we have a winner here, she will be through to the semi-finals. We got here from a Roy Lopez, and we can see black already lining up the queen and the bishop, which I always find when I'm playing white in these structures, with every move you want to check that the sacrifice isn't actually dangerous. So I love the practical approach from black, although it looks like the queen in fact was just on a brief journey to b7. This should be quite a maneuvering game in the long term. I see a potential outpost here. We also, of course, have the tension between the bishops, with one big question being, do you ever want to trade them? If so, who wants to trade them? For now, no player offering up any trades yet. The two players just trying to put their pieces on optimal squares. Black would love to maybe at some point in the future strike in the center with d5. The problem is that the pawn on e5 is currently weak. But the question is, how does white continue? Do you centralize this rook? Does this rook? I think this rook has to stay on a1 to keep an eye on the pawn. And I think we can see a little bit of hesitation here. Thank you so much, Foxy Pony. A little bit of hesitation as neither of the players, it feels like, wants to be the first one to make a mistake. They know how much is on the line here. One mistake could mean the end of all chance. Well, one big mistake will mean the end of all qualifying chances, as a loss here will see the player out of the loser out of the competition. So I think that explains the slightly cautious play, I want to say, that we are seeing with Queen e2 followed by Bishop f8. If the times are correct, Mrudul is in big trouble there. In a time control like 3+2, it's very hard. It's, well, not very hard. I would say it's very much not recommended to drop so low on the clock when your opponent still has almost all that time. And now we see desperate times call for desperate measures. Enough of the waiting around. In comes g4. And it looks like white is going to try to maybe, unless g4 is played in a more positional vein, might try to drum up some attack here on the king side and get the John Dobb herself. Just as much as the loser will be out, the winner of this game, if there is one, will be through to the semi-finals. Black now thinking how to best parry the upcoming, or how to best prepare for the upcoming onslaught. And I have to say, I would not want to be in her shoes. Apparently after knight e7 we can play g5 immediately. I think if I were white, I would maybe play king h2 first, especially with such little time on the clock. But we see white go in a different direction. She for now moves away of the idea of pushing the g-pawn, and it looks like she will want to jump into f5. f5 is, of course, the knight on f5 is a monster piece, as Gary Kasparov famously talked about. From f5, the knight is now also looking down here. h6 is very well protected, though. And I think white is going to have to find a way to continue with the attack. And she goes g5 now. Okay, the pawn is no longer attacked since the knight now stands in the way on f5. Down to 20 seconds though, Mrudul. What is black thinking about? Is black thinking about taking? I think that was very much of a computer move. She went with the human capture on g5, and she strikes in the center with d5. And unfortunately for Mrudul, it looks like the attack sort of is fizzling out a little bit. A lot of our attacking pieces have been exchanged or eliminated, and suddenly look at this beautiful center for black. This bishop suddenly being useful towards both sides on the board. But very tricky situation now. If you recapture with the pawn, the king could land in some trouble. D takes was the way to go, which was not found. She did take on f6. And has Mrudul lost on time, or the move's gonna come in? No, she did make a move with 1 second to go. Not only did she make a move with 1 second to go, she suddenly could be winning here. This is how quickly things turn around in chess. Within just one move. I mean, we saw the position here where black was in the driver's seat, and suddenly this king is left to deal with the queen looking right at it, and both players are getting so low on time. And in fact, wait, what just happened here? After h4, the pawn pushed to d2. I think this was a mouse slip. She probably wanted rook e2. Queen e2 does not make any sense because the rook is hanging with a check, and she resigned. It looks to me like we lost Mrudul in this tournament to a mouse slip. So commiserations, but congratulations to Pandey Srishti, who moves on to the semi-finals. And here finally we have Anastasia Avramidou, who is in the process of making a big comeback. She started the match with 2 losses, but if she can win this rook endgame, double rook endgame, she will force an Armageddon. Rook endings, though, we all know how tricky they are. There's still plenty of work to be done here. I just wonder, can she just start gobbling up these pawns? She did indeed take on f7. Now suddenly the white e-pawn is unopposed. As long as she keeps her king safe, she should be winning this, and that would mean Armageddon. Looks very much like she will get the job done. This pawn is threatened. g7 is hanging. The e-pawn will run. I think from here on out, this should be a fairly safe conversion for Anastasia. Kuto is asking, are we on the semis? No. So these are the quarter-finals. As soon as this match concludes, I will show you the brackets once again. The title is very much inaccurate. I had changed that, but I don't know. Sometimes, thank you, Maripant. I'll change the title right now. Anyway, I'll change the title after this game ends, but the game is over. Anastasia Avramidou forces an Armageddon after having trailed 2-0. So wow, what a comeback for the Greek player. And 3 semi-finalists are known. Let me just quickly change the stream title, and then we shall continue. Thank you, Maripand. So, let's not miss the Armageddon, whatever we do. And okay, so I'm ready with the Armageddon. For those of you who might have joined a little bit later, we will get the updated graph after the Armageddon game. But for now, congratulations to Alua Nurman, who is through to the next stage, which is the semi-finals. Congratulations also to Shubhi Gupta, who is through to the semi-finals, and as we just saw, Pandey Srishti is also through to the semi-finals, and only one spot remains. That spot will go either to Anastasia Avramidou or to Sargsyan. So the games, well, not the games, the game will start shortly. It turns out that I misinformed you guys about the Armageddon rules. So the Armageddon rules, in fact, the players will submit a secret bid to the tournament officials. The maximum bid is 5 minutes, and the player who submits the lower bid will receive the black pieces and the time that they bid. They can make a draw. White will have 5 minutes and is in a must-win situation. The game will be played without increment at any point. So even on move 40, no increment will kick in. I'm hearing that Sargsyan has Excuse me, I'm just double checking. Yeah, Biberman, I'm so sorry. I was informed that I was just on the left speaker. I'll have to look into that again at the end of the stream. It's an issue. I thought I had checked. So, less than a minute. Oh. I'm not missing the game, am I? No. 1 minute to the start of the Armageddon game. Yeah, so never mind. The first information I gave you guys was actually the right one. White will have 5 minutes, black will have 4 minutes. So this is the classical way, that Armageddon used to be played. For those of you who haven't been around the chess scene for quite a long time, you might be used to seeing the bidding process. But before that became a thing, the standard Armageddon was 5 minutes for white. Black plays with 4 minutes, and white is in a must-win situation. Sargsyan got to pick colors as she finished higher in the Swiss qualifier, and the game should appear for us momentarily any second now. Let me do one more refresh. Okay, And we have liftoff. Anna still has her 1 minute lead on the clock. We got here from Animzo so far. I was gonna say so solid, but I like what White has gotten out of the opening here. Anna has a big center. She was the one who picked to play with the white pieces, I think, especially with no increment, and in a format where we've seen so many decisive games. I think picking white here for Anna, especially in a match where we saw no draws at all, or all 4 games had ended decisively. I like her choice of going with the white pieces. The black queen is under attack. One big question, and probably the reason that Anastasia was spending so much time, was looking at queen takes d4. And black is being pushed further back. I very much like white's position. The question is, do you sit on it? Do you bring a rook into the game? Do you push the pawns? Oh, and she's going in a completely different direction. Queen g4, both eyeing up the king, but also the undefended queen. On d7, she might be looking to play d5. d5 was already hailed as a good move, would be even more powerful now. And black acts immediately. f5 is a very strong response here after queen g4. And the pawn got to f5 into moves queen f4. And she must be looking at taking on e4, opening up for the rook. Anastasia really needs to speed up in this game. Remember, she will have no added time, so what you see here is what she's going to have for the rest of the game. And then now trading on f5. The question is, how do you recapture? Do you take with the pawn? Do you take with the knight? She goes with the knight. And I actually like what Anastasia is doing. I'm just very worried about the time, but maybe it is still fine for now. I suspect at some point the rooks will be doubled on the f file, although the rook is also well placed on the open c file. Black, remember, doesn't need to play for a win, right? If black draws the game, she will be through to the semi-finals. The problem is that it's not a position where it's easy to be solid. I expect her to exchange rooks now, bring the other rook to c8. If your Anastasia and the draw is enough, I think you'll be happy about any trades. She actually gets both rooks to the c file, and she must be happy right now. Times also, she's stabilized, I would say, stabilized her time management. White has abandoned the c file. No more trades there for black for now. And the bishop that's under attack is not moving. It is defended by the rook. Feels like the queen is the next piece that could be activated. I also like rook a2, not only looking at this pawn, but especially looking to double on the second rank here with rook c2. Is this one turning around? This one could I mean, if Anastasia wins 3 in a row to qualify to the semifinals, that would just be absolutely incredible comeback in this 4-game match format. Anna not going down without a fight, though. She wants to chase down the black king. Bishop h6 is a tremendously strong piece sacrifice. If black recaptures, the king is not going to survive. How is Anastasia going to deal with this? Plays the knight back, but suddenly Anna is in control. She's now attacking and defending at the same time. The king is safe. And this is looking like at the end of the suspense right now. Anna Sargsyan from the US, the big favorite to make it through to the semi-finals. Queen d5, no queen trade, says Anna. Instead, she wants to checkmate on g7. I think knight h5 has to be played. Or queen b7, but g7 needs to be defended. If the bishop is captured, we see queen f7 is going to lead to checkmate, but I think at this point it is, I think the game is gone. Remember, she will only have 10 seconds with no increment for the rest of the game. So we are witnessing the very final moments here as black had a lost position anyway. We missed a flurry of moves there. We have caught up with the live position. Looks like Anna has missed some more convincing wins, but Anastasia is never going to survive, unfortunately for her, with 3 seconds on the clock. Yeah, she is going to be able to make a few more moves, but she's not going to be able to survive this. She loses on time at the end of an incredibly fighting game where she was looking great. She had great prospects of going through, but in the end Anna Sargsyan turns it around, wins this Armageddon, and is through to the semi-finals. Wow, what have we just witnessed in the quarterfinals? This was an action-packed sequence. I am going to take a very, very quick break just to get some water, which I have forgotten. So I'll get some water. I will also show you the new standings. Let me quickly pull that up on the screen for you. So here we go. These are the updated, this is the updated brackets. Alua Nurman will take on Gupta and in the next round, and Anna Sargsyan will be playing against Pandey. Will be back in just a couple of minutes. I'm just gonna grab some water and I'll be right back. We are back and we're in the semi-finals. This is Alua Nurman against Shubhi Gupta. We will start there. The other semi-final is Sargsyan against Pandey Srishti. And the two, I would say we have two favorites on paper in each of the matches. In this case, Alua Nurman, if I'm not mistaken, the number one junior women player in the world, and she's been on quite the run. She is looking to punch in her ticket for Tokyo. There's still 2 more matches before the winner gets to join the 4 players who have already been invited for the event. After knight f5 here, a big question. Do you take that knight or do you not take the knight? If you take it, you are going to damage that pawn structure. d5 will be a weakness forever, but you do lose the bishop here. She makes the decision to make the trade, and bishop e3 hitting the queen on b6. If black goes grabbing that pawn, you invite the rook to get into the game. It's possible to play that way, but I feel like it would be safer not to capture the pawn, and we see Shubhi indeed go queen a6. If white now were to capture the pawn in the center, Shubhi would respond with bishop takes b4. Again, I would say quite a double-edged position. The pawn structure is a bit damaged. Black has the bishop pair, but a king in the center. That king cannot castle for now, as the bishop would be hanging. So let's see. Well, first of all, what Alua decides. Is she going to take the pawn? Is she going to defend the pawn on b4? There are a number of ways to go on about it. I like what she did. I thought a3 made a lot of sense. Just keep b4 safe, and we see, of course, Shubhi also defending her central pawn on d5. And now in comes the knight into this nice outpost on d4, bishop e7, looking to castle and complete her development. And as we can see from the evaluation bar, the computer seems to think this position is fairly even here. White looking to recapture the pawn that she'd given up on f5, and we could see a bunch of trades incoming here, when on paper the resulting position should lead to a draw. This is exactly the kind of resulting position I was talking about, but we see that white, of course, did not want to make the trade of queens here herself, thus helping black fix their pawn structure and reinforce the central pawn on d5. A few more moves have been played, and I like the way Shubhi is handling this. Rook c4. Again, if white makes the capture herself, suddenly black gets rid of this weakness on d5, and suddenly this pawn instead becomes a very strong passed pawn. So that is not a trade that Alua wants to make. The problem is that if she doesn't make the trade, black is going to double on the c-file, and to me it looks like the Indian player is taking the upper hand here. We can also see from her time usage that Alua has understood that things have turned around ever so slightly. She is suddenly under pressure here. Sorry, we are in the live position, and she did in fact eventually take on c4, and suddenly black is very much in control here with this big passed pawn, and we're going to have to see how Alua is going to try and fight. That passed pawn is now supported by the rook from c8, and Alua is gonna have to look for counterplay, but that's not going to be so easy to find. we see that the pawn can even be pushed further. I don't think Shubhi is gonna do that, because when you push a pawn like that, it's always a double-edged decision, because the pawn, yes, it gets one square closer to touchdown, but it could become potentially weak, while here on c4 you feel like you can always maybe defend it with a pawn push. And okay, Alua responds to a5 with dropping the bishop back, defending the pawn on b4. I think we might see a trade followed by b5. b5 immediately was apparently strong, but queen d7 is another strong move, asking this bishop once again, what is it gonna do? It is under attack. Is it gonna move backwards? Is it gonna move forwards? It has to remain on one of these two squares to keep an eye on the pawn on b4. 30 seconds now for Alua. Hello Jenny in the chat, good to see you here. And the situation is getting critical. I think b5 will be played here to reinforce the pawn on c4. If this was a classical game, I would say it's very much a two-result game. Either black is going to win or it's going to be a draw, but bear in mind this is a blitz game. The players are living on just a 2-second increment, so everything could still happen here. I think h3, a sensible choice by white, just creating some lift for the king, just in case we don't want to leave that background too vulnerable. But just in the last few moves, which are coming in very fast, we see Shubhi making more and more progress. The queen has now infiltrated. That pawn on f4 is under attack if the bishop gets captured while the rook is hanging. Big trouble for Alua Nurman, who's also under 20 seconds. Queen e3 was a brilliant find, by her Indian opponent. And I don't see Alua surviving. She did play rook f1, the bishop dropped. We saw an exchange of bishops which led to not just one but two pawns falling. So black, now the situation has clarified a lot. Black is up 2 pawns, one of which is only 2 squares away from queening. The black king is safe. This is basically over. It looks like Shubhi Gupta is going to take a 1-point lead in the match. He's going to win with the black pieces, an absolutely huge result for the Indian player. The game is not over yet. Alua is trying to fight, but any queen moves here with the b pawn also joining the run is going to signal the end of the game. And so let's just catch up on the last few moves here that we missed. We saw that b pawn drop, and after b4, Alua had seen enough. She resigned here as there was nothing to do to stop this b pawn from pushing, and that is a huge win for Shubhi Gupta with the black pieces against Alua Nurman, who entered today's qualifier as one of the favorites. Prof Proton, I'm so sorry about the audio issues and it only coming in through one channel. I thought it's an issue I've been aware of, and I thought I had fixed it going into today's stream, but it looks like the issue persists, so I'll have to look into it again. Meanwhile, in the other semi-final, Sargsyan beat Pandey Srishti. We can quickly take a look at that game as we wait for game 2 to start. I'm playing through it quite quickly because the games will start soon. But what did black miss here? Looks like we just saw a bunch of exchange and suddenly that king is just in a world of trouble. Those dark squares signaling the end. I mean, wow, this ended very, very quickly. Here, black could not afford for this e5 tone, had to recapture. And here the game would have continued normally, but after the capture on e1, just like that, after knight e5, it was already game over. I think just basically because of the weakness of the dark squares around the black king, and the game ended up only taking another 3 moves before it was over. So Anastasia takes the lead in her match against Pandey Srishti and Shubhi Gupta in the lead in the other semi-final. Game 2 will be starting any moment. In fact, they have already started. We looked at the other game first, so let's look now at Srishti Pandey against Sargsyan, where we just saw the American player. I have to scroll down. The American player take the lead. We see a line from the advanced Caro-Kann here, where it looks like Anna, having played everything pretty much instantly, still knows what she is doing. After bishop e7, that pawn was under attack, it was defended, and we now land in the following position. I would say fairly standard structure, but we see that the Indian player Srishti, no interest in a trade of queens, and queen d1 is an interesting move because the queen is eyeing up at the pawn on h5. After knight d7, the bishop develops to g5. If the bishop is captured, we will probably see a position like this one arise that should lead to a fairly drawn, drawish, not drawn, a fairly drawn, a position with fairly drawish tendencies. I think that's a good way of putting it. But Anna did not take on g5. She is saying, I'm happy if the bishops come off, but I would like to trade them on my terms. That's exactly what happens. The resulting structure is fairly similar though, and this is going to be a big maneuvering middle game here, with both players having to figure out which squares do their pieces belong on. Is this knight still going to move, which would open up the queen's vision and more or less force black to play g6. It looks like Srishti is saying yes, that is indeed what she wants to do. I'm surprised Anna hasn't played g6 yet. The alternative is f6, but I feel especially when you won game 1, surely Anna will be happy here to keep things solid by pushing her pawn to g6, and then white will probably work on rerouting the knight from rerouting the knight from b3. I imagine this rook is going to go to e1. This rook will stay on a1 for now, where it defends the pawn on a4, and so the move that was chosen was c3. Again, very reasonable move, very solid move, just reinforcing the center, and Anna getting ready for the c5 push. Of course, c5 is a thematic push. In this case here, black isn't threatening anything, as the central pawn was well defended. I'm a little bit surprised Srishti decided to capture on c5, because now the pawn on e5 could become a weakness in the long term. I think that exchange is going to see Anna take over a little bit. Position still in the balance, but Anna also has a nice 30-second lead on the clock. The knight jumps into d2, but it's not clear what the knight is doing there. Yes, it is a double attack, but rook e2 defends the pawn on b2, and suddenly it's not clear what the knight is doing on d3. I think it's going to have to jump back to c5 when black is simply going to have lost a bit of time here. And once again, the structure changes as black makes the trade on d4. And black gets to double on the c file. So c5 is no longer an escape square for the knight, but the knight will be able to get out via b4 and c6 if needed. I was going to say I was slightly surprised that the computer is giving white such a big edge. It didn't look obvious to me how white should have proceeded to get that position, but now suddenly the knight is jumping. It is hitting the rook on e2. It is also threatening a fork on b3, so rook e3 was the only move. But after rook c2, Anna really the one taking over here. The queen is under attack. There are not too many safe squares for the queen. She chooses to drop back to e2. And it looks like after a check on e2, Anna will be able to safely capture the pawn on b2 and go up a pawn, but time is running under a minute now, while Srishti is down to just 10 seconds already. Okay, the pawn was not captured, and the Indian player is back in the game. She is hitting the pawn on f7, so black needs to defend it. I think rook c7 or rook f8 will be played. This is going to be a nervy finish of a game. My feeling is Anna will have made a move already. I'd be shocked if she spent so much time on deciding on how to defend the pawn. And we're probably gonna get a big flurry of moves. So she did play rook c7, queen f6, queen b4. Queen is looking to come back, and here a big missed opportunity. We can return to that later on. But king g2 was the move played instead. Queen e7. And if black keeps it together, she has picked up a pawn. Oh, wow. Moves are coming in thick and fast here. This was not it. Suddenly white managed to get 2 rooks for the queen. The moves are coming in faster than I can keep up with. The situation is changing every time we have a move update. Suddenly anyone could still, I mean, it's still very much a true result game. We see the eval bar just going up and down every time there's been an update in the position. White has the 2 rooks, but suddenly it's black who has the 2 passed pawns back here. The question is, will the black king survive, or will the black king get checkmated? I mean, also a perpetual is still, I think a draw is a very likely result here. But we'll just have to wait and see. I also think not unlikely at all that one of the players loses on time. Suddenly it is Anna who is winning again. if she can find knight f5, hitting this rook, threatening to come into e3. But the moves she chose also are perfectly good, mobilizing her pawns. And the situation has changed again. Suddenly white has survived. We missed a bunch of moves. And the situation has changed again. It looks like Anna just missed, blundered her knight. She's still alive because the pawns are very, very powerful. But if this a-pawn drops, Srishti is suddenly a big favorite again to win this game and to equalize the score in the match. This has been an absolute nail-biter. Every time the position updates, I think surely the game is going to be over now, but it's not over yet. Anna's still fighting. That pawn can be taken. It can only be taken. She will take that pawn. But also time. So the pawn was not actually captured on e3. Instead, the rook dropped back. And we're now going to see this crazy endgame. 2 rooks and a knight versus a queen and 2 pawns. It is clear that only white, I think, can win here. But queens are tricky, especially when combined with pawns that are advancing. And considering the players are playing with seconds on the clock, is Pandey gonna manage to keep it together? She will be very, very happy if she can round up that pawn. I think she is going to take that pawn on d3 on the next move, and surely she will feel like this is a game I can no longer lose. The question is, will she be able to win it? First port of call is to keep the king safe. Black is going to try and find a perpetual. White is going to have to try and shield her king with the knight as well as possible. This is it. We see now that black is out of checks, but that's of course not enough to win the game. In order to win the game, I think Srishti will have to find a way to win this last pawn without leaving herself with just a knight, which of course is not enough to checkmate the enemy king. My feeling is this is going to be a draw. I think it's very, very hard for white to make progress here, even if they had all the time in the world and were playing a classical game. But in a blitz game, in a blitz game, I don't see it happening. My prediction is this will, by the way, this is move 97. What's your guys' prediction in the chat? How will this very unusual endgame end? My prediction is that it's going to be... Oh. Well. No longer a draw. That king, after this check, had to go backwards. When it stepped forward, suddenly it got into the line of fire, and rook d5 picked up the queen, and with it the game. Wow, what a comeback in game 2 from Srishti Pandey, who ties the score 1 each. And what a mammoth game. Elsewhere we saw another shocker. Shubhi Gupta has won her second game of the match against Alua Nurman. And honestly, if we just play through this for a second, it looks like it was a demolition job. She just threw everything she had at black. Just pushing those pawns like a real champ. This bishop also is a beast on g2. And this is move 20, and the position was already hopeless for black. What a... Wow. What a game by Shubhi Gupta. Let's see how she wrapped it up. Those pawns, they just kept marching. In comes the knight. Pawn keeps marching. And that was the end of the game. Wow. Unbelievable. If knight takes f6, you can even take your pick of how to take on h6. But wow. Steamrolled. Yeah, I seen Fernine Physic is saying, wow. Mats Blug is saying steamrolled. That was one hell of a game that we missed here. With that, Shubhi Gupta is only one draw away from qualifying to the final. So that's the game that we are going to follow next. I have to admit that Shubhi Gupta is a player I'm not familiar with, but then again, in India, you know, the new talents, they just keep popping out of nowhere. I see that Shubhi Gupta is born in 2010, so a very young player still at 16 years old. She is a woman FIDE master. Her classical rating is 2242 and probably rising very, very quickly. And yeah, we see now that the next games should be starting again in a second. And we are going to be following Alua Nurman, who is in a must-win situation after losing her first two games to Shubhi Gupta. Game started out as a French. We see no steam rolling here. Alua taking a more positional approach, fianchettoing her bishop to g2, and black as a standard attacking the central pawn on e5 with the f6 push. It does feel like Shubhi is weakening e6 quite a bit though. Let's see how she's going to follow this up. I don't know how I feel about the f6 push in this situation. But Shubhi is saying, I have some outposts of my own. That knight is headed either for c4, b3, most likely c4, I would say. So in comes the knight, and we will see if this knight here, which started its journey from b1, of course, all the way on move 3, and that knight did indeed go out to e3, offering a trade. Black says, well, we can trade knights, but we shall trade them on my terms. Alua says, okay, takes on c4 and bishop e3, and in jumps the next knight into e4. After knight d2, we saw a trade on d4, and I really like Alua's pieces now. This bishop on d4 is a very powerful piece, and we are seeing some tactics here. Big miss by the Indian player. She had to trade knights. The problem is after knight c5, if she recaptures here, the rook will be hanging in the center. If she doesn't recapture, well, she probably cannot, she probably cannot recapture. She will simply have lost a pawn, and not just any pawn. Wow, she decides to actually give up the rook, or should I say the exchange, instead. But she is not going to survive this position. If we do a quick material count, white is not only up in exchange, but an exchange and a pawn. Black doesn't really have any obvious counterplay, that bishop will at some point just safely drop all the way back. Drops back to a nice central location on e4. And Alua, I have no doubt, is going to convert this. And maybe she took offense to someone in chat, you know. I think someone had said this game is, or it wasn't me. Maybe she took offense with me saying this was more positional. As we see here, this is anything but positional. She is now going in for the kill. She has picked up more material in the process. The king is completely empty, completely naked, completely alone. White is just collecting more material with every move. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a resignation here by Shubhi. Gupta, with Alua Nurman getting back 1 win, but remember she was trailing 2-1, so she will need another one after this. And indeed we saw a resignation here after queen takes c4. So the match between these two players currently 2-1 in favor of Shubhi Gupta. The match between Sargsyan and Pandey Srishti is currently tied 1-1 each. So let's see. Sargsyan, who is the favorite on paper, will certainly be very eager to get a win here with the white piece as going into the fourth and final game. Was something missed on the last? I see the computer was screaming for bishop e3. Again, not completely obvious why that's so strong. We see some trades on f4, another trade being offered up. And I think white, with the better long-term chances, white has this semi-open d-file pawn on d6, bound to be a long-term weakness. White's piece is better coordinated. The question is it going to be enough for a win? I think time is going to be a big factor here again, with both players under a minute or around the minute mark. I am also a little bit worried about this bishop, although the bishop can always drop back here, but then... So what I'm talking about is at some point, if white gets in g3, f4, that bishop would not be able to defend the pawn on d6 any longer. And so I think d5 makes a lot of sense to try and do the pawn break rather than sitting with the weakness on d6. And I have to say again, I'm very impressed with how Srishti is handling this so far. We are now in a pure queen and bishop endgame with a completely symmetrical pawn structure. White is currently hitting the bishop and the pawn, but queen b8 actually would defend both, but that was missed by black. Black had 2 squares to keep the bishop and the pawn safe. She didn't find it, and after queen g5, the pawn on b7 drops, and Sargsyan here suddenly in the driver's seat again. One question is, what happens after bishop takes? I'm not gonna even make any more moves on the board. We'll just stick around with the live broadcast. So after bishop e3 was played, queen e4, and we see another trade here. And really this endgame, once again, a 2-result game. Only white can win it with her extra pawn, if everything goes normally. But what is normal in Blitz? Who has ever seen a normal Blitz game? We know anything can still happen. But the white king is quite exposed, so I would say draw the most likely result, but Anna is going to try and win it, of course, with the extra pawn. She's going to try and keep her king safe, and I like what black has done, pushing her pawn, getting the queen closer to the enemy king, trying to open up that king and just maybe force a perpetual. We see a trade happened on g3, but that pawn, I think, can safely be captured now. And with only 2 pawns left each, it looks like this game is going to end peacefully at the end of a big fight. And this match will continue being tied if this game ends in a draw, with everything on the line in the upcoming 4th game. I'm curious if the players are just waiting for the other to offer a draw. Okay, well, I think they will manage to get the last pawn off the board here, and the draw will be agreed. There we go. The last pawns did indeed come off, and so this match continues being tied, with Pandey taking the first one, Sargsyan taking game 2, and now a draw. Srishti, Pandey will be white in the 4th game. If there is a winner there, that person will go through to the final. I think that we are going to be watching once again Alua Nurman, who was in a must-win situation in game 3. She did win that game. She will once again be in a must-win situation in game 4. So we'll keep an eye on that and see if she can repeat the magic. By the way, the players that we lose in this semi-final stage, we will still see them continue playing. They are going to play a match for 3rd place. Okay, so we are ready for game 4. Alua Nurman playing with the black pieces here against Shubhi Gupta in a must-win situation to force an Armageddon. Predictions in the chat? Do we go to Armageddon, or does Shubhi Gupta go through to the final? What do you guys think? Okay, we have liftoff. I see Mustblock is predicting an Armageddon. Because that's what I want to see. Yeah, I'm not surprised. As a chess fan, watching Armageddon is always a lot of fun. So let's see. Well, Alua, certainly by playing the King's Indian, her intentions are clear. She, of course, wants to win the game, but she's also prepared to take matters into her own hand, going for one of the most aggressive openings out there. And she is playing quickly. I think playing well and playing quickly is going to be the strategy, like it is for every Blitz game ever. But a lot on the line here for Alua Nurman, who has her eyes set on Tokyo, June 6th and 7th, 1 month from now. The tournament will happen in Japan. What stands behind her and qualifying it are winning this game, winning an Armageddon, and winning the finals. So there's plenty more winning to be done, but I really like the way she's gone on about this. We see a position with opposite side castling in general, of course, that leads to very sharp, very double-edged positions. We see white actually striking first here. The rook is already on g1. It's eyeing up the enemy king. g4 has been played. But we can also see that the computer does favor black. The white king even though the white king is looking happy right now, let's not forget it's on the diagonal, the same diagonal as this queen. This bishop would have loved to go here if the knight wasn't there, and if there was more support. For now it will have to have to drop back. But black also has a big pawn center, and we can see that with a6 here, black has started preparing an eventual advance on the queen side. I suspect she might first develop the last piece. That's not what she does. She plays e4, hitting the knight moves, and now the bishop and the queen are aligned. They are looking down here. The queen is nicely centralized. I love this position for black, and it feels like going backwards is a step in the wrong direction, but the computer is flagging one move here and one move only for white. I think it's a hard move to find, but f4 is a stunner, and she finds it. Wow! Shubhi Gupta, f4 was the only move to survive, and suddenly anything is possible here. b5 drops. That's probably not a pawn that Alua was too worried about losing. She gets some open files now that she's going to be able to use. This bishop is a beast on g7, looking down here. What a crazy position, and I like Alua's chances. We saw Shubhi play a beautiful attacking game earlier, but it looks like now roles have very much been reversed, and Alua is the one who's having all the fun here. The knight is currently on the attack. Where does it go? It jumps forward to c6. And apparently black, I think Alua will play rook b6, but apparently black can get away with just leaving the rook there and playing knight d3, going on the counterattack instead. I expect rook b6, so that is exactly what she does. After rook e2, in comes the knight, so now b2 is really the focal point, but I don't see how black is going to be able to hold on here. It feels like, especially with this monster bishop, something has got to give. Apparently you can already just take the knight. I think Alua might be tempted to do so, because yes, you sacrifice an exchange, but you get a knight and a pawn in return. Queen a6 is also a perfectly good move, and the question is, how much longer is Shubhi going to be able to withstand the pressure that is mounting here? The times also tell the story of this game, where Nurman went on the attack very early in the game, and now after white's last move, rook f1, she finds the killer. Rook takes b3. If the rook is captured, the white king gets checkmated, but the bad news for Shubhi Gupta is that if the rook isn't captured, the king will be checkmated regardless. This time a demolition job again, but in the other directions. She has had to give up a bunch of material to survive. We just jumped a few moves into the future, but we can see that black now has an extra queen as well as 2 extra pawns. The computer is still flashing an incoming checkmate, so it looks like we are headed to Armageddon once again, and Must Block has their wishes heard. This one is going to be over. In fact, I think I'm going to move away from this game, and we're going to see the end of Pandey Srishti against Sargsyan instead, where the match is still tied. So everything on the line here. Alua Nurman has won her game. We are going to Armageddon, and here, if we have a winner, that person goes through to the final. It looks like one right now. Srishti Pandey is in the driver's seat with, if we did material count, material is even, but the knight's just having some nicer outposts. Potentially c5 is weak. There's an outpost here, there's an outpost here. I like White's chance, so she's down to 12 seconds, though. This is going to be another thriller. If this is a draw, we're gonna have 2 Armageddon games, so that's gonna be exciting. I was just gonna say that draw the most likely result in this endgame, but you know, when you're playing on seconds, it looks like Anna is making something work here. Suddenly, that pawn is weak. If c4 falls, White will lose. So White is going to hold on to that pawn for dear life. But suddenly, one plan, just bring the king all the way. That's exactly what Anna is doing here. And if I had to predict now, she's also up on the clock. I think she's going to do it. I think Anna Sargsyan has great chances right now of advancing into the final with a win here. The pressure on the c4 pawn is mounting. If this knight drops back, I think the other knight is eventually gonna find a way to make its way to a5. c4 is hanging now. Anna shouldn't leave herself with too little time. What is happening? Okay, the game is going. The c-pawn has dropped. Anna Sargsyan, unless she blunders something big or loses on time. If she can keep her nerve, she will be going to the final, but there it is. Suddenly, things are once again unclear, because that rook is going to be able to move to c6 from where it will attack the knight, and now, wow, I think we're getting to Armageddons. Looks like we're getting to Armageddons. Surely there will be no more turnarounds in this 4 versus 4 rook end game. But we're gonna have to go back and see how did Srishti survive this. That was very impressive. And Anna will be kicking herself. This game is in its very, very final stages now. Yeah, Mostblock is saying that of course it is time trouble and things could still happen. I think things can always happen in time trouble, but in this endgame here, surely that's the end of the adventures. And a draw has been agreed, and we're getting not just 1 but 2 Armageddons. We got there in very different ways, though. Shubhi Gupta had taken a 2-0 lead in her match against Alua Nurman. Alua then went on to win 2 games in a row to force an Armageddon, while in the match between Anna Sargsyan and Srishti, Pandey, the American player, started out with a win. She then lost, and the last 2 games of the match, I was gonna say they were peaceful. They weren't exactly peaceful. Let's just see here. How did Black lose control over that beautiful, beautiful position? This was the mistake. I think what she missed. Oh, even here, yeah. Then there were a lot of rook c6 was also a move. Here was probably the last chance to keep fighting, but in the game after rook a3, we saw this massive liquidation, and the game ended in a draw. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And just like that, we are waiting for the Armageddon. I will catch my breath for 1 second. I'll be back as soon as the game starts. See you guys in just a second. Okay, we are back and the games have started. I'm not sure which one to follow. I feel like we followed Alua more. Chat, you have 1 second to tell me. Which game do you want to follow? Alua against Shubhi or Anna against Srishti? 2 very exciting games. Or do we think we should jump a little bit? Alua. Okay, must block. We'll stick with Alua for now. So remember, these are Armageddon games. White started with 5 minutes against Black. Black's 4 minutes. And it was Nurman and Sargsyan, the 2 rating favorites, who both chose to play with White. So both favorites on paper. In a must-win situation, if Black holds a draw, they are through to the to the final. What am I saying? We're already in the semi-final, and this one starting out quite interestingly. Now some tension here. What is White going to do? Is she gonna trade on e6? That's not what she does, but she does allow the trade, of course, to happen herself. And now a queen trade being offered up by Shubhi, who has understood the assignment. She only needs a draw, so she's trying to exchange as many pieces as possible while keeping the position stable. I really like what the Indian player is doing so far. I'm not surprised Alua has elected to keep the queens on the board, but suddenly Black's position is looking great. All the black pieces are beautifully placed. The rooks are in their central locations. White has a weakness here, a long-term weakness on d4. And just like that, we can see the computer seems to think not only is this position bad for White, it even thinks that Black is simply winning already. That would be absolutely a massive result for Shubhi, who I think, especially from a psychological point of view, is also surely was the player that I wouldn't have favorited going into this Armageddon, because let's remember, she just lost 2 games in a row here. But Shubhi doesn't seem affected. Wow. Computer is flashing knight g2. I don't know if that's gonna be found. This is a crazy position, and it is not found. Instead, she takes on e5, which is also very good. And is f5 just... does f5 just end the game? That will win the knight. On e4 goes another direction, knight e6. And the other knight now takes its place on f4. Should still be winning, but I think f5 was a little easier. Let's see, can Shubhi keep her nerve? Times have evened out, so Alua has lost her 1 minute advantage that she started with. And she, I think, you know, she understands, of course, her position is bad. And I think going pawn grabbing in such a desperate situation is not a bad idea. After queen a5, we saw knight d3, a check. And there goes that bishop. And so there was a chance to win the knight earlier with f5, but Shubhi Gupta has won a piece regardless. The knight on d3 is safe. White has no counterplay really for being a piece down. I expect Alua to play on, but it will take a miracle for her to come back from this piece down position. Shubhi Gupta 1 foot in the final. Can she keep her nerve? She finds another great move. Knight takes f2, removing the defender of that rook. So if knight takes, the rook will be hanging. And okay, rook f3, counter-attacking on f7, but is that enough? If knight takes, queen takes is only a check, and sure, the knight on e6 will be hanging in the end as well, but still, at the end of the day, every trade gets Shubhi Gupta closer to her desired result. Queen e6 surely has been played already, but knight g5. I think knight g5 is actually the end. of the road. The rook on f3. Not only will it drop, but it will drop with a check. Black will be up a full rook. And I think we're going to see a resignation here from Alua Nurman. And there is the resignation. Congratulations to Shubhi Gupta, who is through to the final. What an absolutely incredible result from the young Indian player. Meanwhile, Sargsyan, who also elected to play with white, is a piece up in her game against Srishti Pandey. Srishti doesn't also seem to have much counterplay, only relying on maybe finding some perpetuals, but this queen is such a great defender. I don't see any miracles happening here either. It looks like we will have a Sargsyan Gupta final here, and a match for third place between Alua Nurman and Srishti Pandey. Srishti is fighting. She's also down to 30 seconds though. I think very slowly Anna will try to untangle by playing g3, getting the king out, getting the bishop out. This king is actually in a world of pain suddenly. And, you know, barring a disconnection, I don't really see how Anna is not going to win this game. And the g-pawn has started its run. The king has left the back rank. Of course, Srishti trying her best to drum up some counterplay. The problem is you can't even really push that pawn. If you push that pawn, you'll always run into some checks. The pawn will drop, and now I think the g-pawn is just going to keep running. There are no checks on the board. This king is completely safe. Srishti is down to just 13 seconds. And I think we're seeing the very final moments here of this Armageddon game. I always feel when you are these players, you're kind of just hoping the opponent will resign, but here, after a bunch of checks, the only thing that Anna needs to watch out for is to not allow a perpetual at this point. Her opponent is down to 4 seconds, and I think she has done a fantastic job. G5 is under our control, so there is no check there winning the pawn, and this is in fact over. So congratulations to Sargsyan, who after losing the first 2 games in this semi-final hit back with 3 consecutive wins to make it to the final, where she will be taking on Shubhi Gupta, who has been the surprise of the tournament for me so far, I have to say. Let me show you guys the updated standings, and then we will all catch our breath for a second before the action continues. So, in the standings, sorry, that was not the right one. Where is the right one? Bear with me for 1 second. There we go. So, as mentioned, the final will be between Shubhi Gupta and Sargsyan. The winner of that incoming match will qualify to the event in Tokyo, Japan 1 month from now. And we have a third place match between Nurman and Pandey. The players will get a couple short minutes break. I will also use that time to catch a breath, and I will see you guys for the final in just a second. Okay, here we are. We're back for the big final between Shubhi Gupta and Sargsyan. Remember, the winner gets a ticket to the event in Tokyo, Japan, the first of the WR Women's Chess Tour of 2026. That is happening in a month. So a lot on the line here for both players. And I just have to say, very, very impressed with the play we've seen, especially from the young Indian player that I was not familiar with her as a player. Let me know in the chat. I know there's a few good women players and friends of mine in the chat. Let me know if you were familiar with Shubhi, because I'm just discovering her as a player today, and I'm, as I said, very impressed by what I have seen here so far. For the third and final match, the big final, another factor is energy levels. Of course, they've only been playing for 2 hours in a bit, but I think those high stakes qualifiers always take it out of you a lot more than just a regular a blitz session. Remember, these players also on a Zoom call, they are of course being checked for fair play, and as I said, so much on the line. A ticket to Tokyo to face the best of the best in the world in Japan. And here it looks like the rating favorite has taken an early grip on the game. Somehow I feel like something went wrong in the very early stages here for Shubhi. Somehow the way she developed her pieces just allowed Anna to grab some space very early on, and now she just has a very pleasant position and almost a free wall with the pawns as that F pawn marching up the board. Well, the king has castled now, but not only do I like Anna's bishops, that's not how bishop moves, and not only do I like the bishops, the pawn on d4 is an isolated pawn. It is a long-term weakness. This bishop, I suspect it will drop back all the way to b8, potentially to e7 or f8, but it felt to me like keeping it on this diagonal made a lot of sense. But as long as she's holding on to the bishops, that is the main thing here. The rook is now under attack. My guess is it's gonna slide back either to f7 or potentially all the way, and then Anna will build up more slowly. That knight will at some point, I think, be kicked out. The queen will move out depending on where the knight goes. But no, we did see, so after rook f7, bishop g4 was played. The problem is that sequence allowed queen b6, which was found by Anna, and suddenly this pawn is under attack, the knight is under attack, and one of them is going to drop. Of course, if you have a choice between losing a knight and a pawn, you're gonna want to lose the pawn. And Shubhi is trying to drum up some counterplay, at least, and it looks like knight e6 was not it. Queen e6, and suddenly that pawn is under attack. The rook is pinned. Will she find queen e6? She does not. She goes back. Going back when you're already under pressure is not the way. And after knight d3, Anna is completely in control of the game. This bishop is being hit. She still needs to be careful though. The rook, the knight is now pinned, but the knight is so well defended, so she can simply continuing stacking up the rooks on the f-file. I also like that Anna's moves have been very natural. She is really showing us how to deal with these positions after winning a pawn. Although Queen e6, that was a big miss for Shubhi, who will be kicking herself when she reviews the game. That chance came a little bit out of nowhere, to be fair, but still it was there, and she did not take that chance. Now, where is the queen going to go? b4 is the only... Unless I'm dreaming, b4 is the only safe square for the queen. Excuse me. Knight f4 could be played, but I'd be shocked if she... Yeah, queen b4. She knows, you know, she's up on material, she's up on position, life is good. Why calculate any complications when you can just keep things simple? That is what she has done. She, as I said, is up a pawn, but not only that, her position is nice and safe. This knight is anchored in the enemy camp on d3. She has all this pressure down the f-file. I don't know. I could see her playing b6. Computer says there's no need to worry about the pawn on a7 being captured, and she could have moved her queen. This, I think, has a similar idea. The idea will still be to play queen g6. Oh, but now, is this queen getting trapped? Queen g3 runs into knight e2. I think that's over. That's gonna be game over. The queen has no more safe squares it can move to. Are we gonna see? I think we'll see a resignation here. I think, and we see the resignation. g4 was not the right square, but in a bad position. There are no good moves. According to Mr. Compy, queen c2 was best, but then queen g6, threatening checkmate. And yes, white can survive for now, but white is probably not gonna survive for long here. So well done to Sargsyan, who takes the lead in the final, goes 1-0 up, a big win with the black pieces. And meanwhile, in the other game, Alua Nurman has taken the lead. Let's see what happened there. We had an Italian game. This h6 move has been all the rage lately, played by some of the very best, but wow, very aggressive approach from Srishti, which seems to not have worked out in her favor. Not for not getting a good position though, not for lack of getting a good position. Looks like she got everything she wanted out of her opening approach, but after knight takes d4, knight c2, things are things were still looking good until knight a4, which just lost a piece in one move. That's just a one move blunder. And Alua probably very relieved to take that knight and with it win the first game. So wins for the two favorites on paper in game one. We now wait for game two to start. But a fantastic start, especially for Sargsyan with the black pieces. Now her young opponent, Shubhi Gupta, only has 3 games to strike back, and only in one of these 2 remaining games will she have the advantage of the white pieces. Let's see what Anna does with white. We see another Italian here, a much more quiet Italian. None of this h6, g5. We see h6 here, but it is a very different idea. It's just to cover that square. All of this is standard maneuvering in the Italian, and this is the current position on the board after bishop bishop a4. And knight f4 is another standard knight jump. This is always a great outpost for the knight. The bishop, I suspect it's going to drop back to c2. Keep an eye on the pawn on d3. And meanwhile, what is Shubhi going to do? I'm curious if she's going to try and go all out already in this game with the black pieces to try and tie the score immediately. The problem is when you go all out in game 2, if you end up losing, suddenly you're staring down the barrel of having to win 2 in a row. In fact, Shubhi knows that situation because she was in that exact situation against Alua Nurman, except on the other side of it, she had won the first 2 games, then she went on to lose the next 2 and the Armageddon. But that's neither here nor there. We see a push in the center. Here comes the d4 break by Sargsyan. And a tricky position. Is Shubhi looking at some sacrifices on h3 already, or will she only be looking towards that side of the board once the situation gets more desperate? For now, there is absolutely no need to look at the sacrifice yet, but I think the temptation is just always there when you have all of these pieces looking down here. Knight f5. Okay. So what happens if take? Okay, let's just put that on the board. Now computer saying either c5 or maybe e4, and what happens if takes? Hard to say. Maybe Shubhi will go for something like that. But no, she plays king h8. King h8 to me indicates that she very much wants to play g5. The problem is I have to take care of this pawn on h6 first. Okay, let's see. Anna finds the best move, queen c1. Things are turning, the situation is turning in white's favor. Suddenly, I really liked what black had done with this bishop e6, queen c8, knight f4. But suddenly there is no more clear path forward, and all of white's pieces are suddenly well placed. White is threatening. Queen d1 did step out of the d file, so white is now threatening to capture on e5, and Shubhi is spending a lot of time here to figure out how to deal with this position she has found herself in. And she decided to play g6. g6 is a very risky move. That's always going to weaken your king quite significantly. So that knight, can we take here, or do we? There's a lot of options for that knight. Okay, taken isn't the best because of king g7, but is she going to figure that out? I like knight g3 because also it looks like black cannot take, because that queen from c1, we suddenly see just how well the queen is placed on c1, eyeing up that pawn on h6. What just happened there? Okay, she didn't move the knight at all. Instead, she went g4, but after she takes f5, oh my goodness. Things are turning. Surely that pawn will be grabbed. And Anna has completely lost control over her position. I suspect Shubhi has taken that pawn already. I don't see a reason not to take it. She did not take it immediately. She first took on e5. And Anna chose not to defend it. So now the pawn has dropped. Both players under 30 seconds. It's going to be another nervy finish. On paper now, Shubhi, the big favorite to equalize the final. And just as I say that, it's gone again. After king h2, the only move was to play f4 and defend the knight in this way. Maybe not obvious with seconds on the clock. And after bishop takes f5, queen f4 was the winning shot. That was also missed. And after f4, we find ourselves in this crazy position and she finds the only move. Shubhi finds the only move to survive. Queen f5, defending the bishop, bringing the queen into the game. Material is actually equal here. Anything could happen. Is Shubhi going to strike back? Is Anna gonna find a way to win this? This knight is under pressure. I like Shubhi's chances, practically speaking. Oh, did she lose on? And Anna loses on time. Wow. Anna Sargsyan loses on time. Congratulations to Shubhi Gupta, who equalizes the score in the final 1-1 with 2 games to go. Yeah, ouch. Ouch is very apt. Meanwhile, in the match for 3rd place, Alua Nurman with black is up in exchange, but white has a bunch of pawns. White actually has 3 pawns, one of which just started running up the board. So it looks like Pandey Srishti is looking to also equalize. So this game 2 could be a very good game from the 2 young Indian players. Oh, is she gonna get mated? What just happened there? Oh goodness. We missed a few moves and just like that suddenly it all fell apart. All fell apart for white, who's now going to get mated. King e3. Surely. Do we have a result already? Yeah, we saw king e3 be played, and after a2 the game ended in checkmate, which means that Alua Nurman survives what was, I mean, when we arrived, it wasn't a dead lost position, but it was a tricky position. Let's see how it turned around so quickly. Trading bishops was already dangerous, and suddenly, yeah, I think playing this as white, this position is no longer easy, and just one innocuous looking move, a pawn push, and suddenly the black king has infiltrated the position, and that g pawn together with the active king ended up deciding the game. Alua Nurman only needs a draw now out of the remaining 2 games to take 3rd place. Meanwhile, in the final, everything to play for. The final is currently tied 1-1. Could hardly ask for more suspense than that. And Shubhi Gupta continues to impress me tremendously. She is now white in game 3. Game 1 didn't go so well for her. Let's see. We have liftoff. And what are we gonna get here? Okay. This is not what they played in game one. I think, in fact, that Shubhi, didn't she switch from e4 to d4? Either way, the game is in full swing. That pawn will be recaptured probably by the knight, otherwise she could have taken it immediately, and Anna strikes in the center with e5. And to me it looks like, if we are to trust the clocks, probably Shubhi still in following some sort of prep, or still knows what she's doing at least. Thank you so much, Tech Masher, for your comment. And what do we make of this resulting position? I think if we look at the pawns, symmetrical pawn structure, probably a fairly even middle game position. I'm going to be curious to see if Shubhi decides to swap queens or to keep queens on the board. She does decide to take the queens off. Is this going to be... I have a feeling right now that this could be one of our very few peaceful games. I would probably prefer white. Maybe I would put my bishop here, like black has not fully completed the development yet, but white has this, black has this very, very solid pawn chain. So it's not clear how good this bishop here is on b2. Maybe at some point the bishop will move to a3, but black starting to slowly take over a little bit. Suddenly b3 is under attack. No, you can't. Yeah, you couldn't push this immediately. You had to make the trade first, but even now, knight d3 and big problems for Shubhi. Will Anna find knight d3? Knight d3 blocks this bishop's vision, so now the problem is this knight is under attack, the bishop is under attack, so white is forced to capture, but after the recapture, this knight is once again under attack, as is this pawn. So after rook c1, we don't want to take immediately because this bishop is still hanging, but suddenly with the bishop pair and white having a lot of weaknesses, this is looking very, very, very bad for white. I want to say almost borderline lost here. She has no choice though, as far as I can see, she has to capture on d3, which she does. Suddenly only a minute 20 on the clock for Shubhi, and Anna a big favorite to win a second black game here, up on the clock with a brilliant position. If she understands that she needs to move that bishop, the bishop doesn't have too many squares, so I think bishop d8 will be played. No, that was my analysis. So she's still thinking. I like bishop d8 because it is a safe, it's a move that you can make quickly and safely. I would actually be surprised if she had spent so much time on that decision. Let's see, I think we're about to get a flurry of moves incoming. I don't think this is the position, the position where she would be spending. No, she did spend all that time here and decided to go into this endgame. I'm actually very surprised. Of course, that endgame is still good for her, but I much preferred keeping the pressure on with the two bishops. And now very real saving chances for Shubhi suddenly, who's also now up on the clock by 20 or so seconds. She needs to defend the pawn on e3. Maybe this is what Anna has calculated. I say she needs to defend this pawn, which isn't super easy to do. Now black, it doesn't work right now. Black, of course, would love to make something like this work, but b7 is hanging in the end as well, which is, I think, why instead she decided to attack this pawn. The pawn was pushed, it was blocked, and now the ball is back in Anna's court. I think she'll be kicking herself to have gone into this endgame when she could have kept the bishops on. But f4. Strategically, f4 just feels off. I don't know if there's a way to punish it immediately, but you are opening up this bishop, which was, and if I just go back one move, is she planning to take? No. 10 seconds, well, 25 seconds for Anna Sargsyan after f4, king e6 was played, and now white has this weakness. One weakness shouldn't be enough though in this kind of endgame. So the question is, can Anna create a second weakness? First she has to deal with this pawn which is under attack. I think that pawn will just be pushed forward a square. I still like Anna's chances. I still like Anna's chances here. I think it's just very tricky to defend for white. Look at that poor rook, doesn't have much mobility. The bishop is stuck to defending this pawn. The white rook is kind of stuck along the fourth rank. I think Anna's gonna find a way to do it. I think Anna is gonna find a way. Rook b1, asking this. Moves are once again coming in very fast. And now a big question to answer for Anna. Do you go into the rook ending or not? We have the luxury of being assisted by the engine, and the engine tells us this rook endgame is a win. Anna will not lose it unless she loses on time. The question is, will she win? But I think with these two pawns, with a centralized king, the white king will be kicked back. I think Anna's got this one in the bag. The first two, so it is a best of four, excuse me, best of four indeed. If Anna wins this one, she will take a 2-1 lead and will need only a draw to qualify to Tokyo. She's making good progress, keeping the king shielded while advancing her pawns. And the game is still going. The problem is those pawns are very mobile while the white pawn is stuck on b6. It cannot advance any further, and I think we're seeing the very final moments of the game here. And after f4, king g3, Shubhi had seen enough, and Anna Sargsyan takes a 2-1 lead in the final. And meanwhile, in the match for third place, it's not over yet because Pandey Srishti wins game 3. Remember, she was down 2-0 in the match. What happened here? Let's see how she managed to win. She returned to this line and it worked a treat for her this time around. She also got a great position with it in game 1 before things fell apart. Here it looks like she let go of her advantage again, but how did it turn around? And I know I'm whizzing through what is a crazy complicated game, but game 4 is coming up very shortly. It seems like things had calmed down, and then we just saw a big blunder, a very big blunder, because after rook f1, this was a beautiful checkmate, which was found by Srishti, who keeps her chances alive. She will have to win one more time to force an Armageddon, but one player who, as Kuto has put it, has one foot in Tokyo is Sargsyan. Sargsyan, who leads 2-1 in her match against Shubhi Gupta. A draw or a win will see her through to Tokyo. Meanwhile, for Shubhi Gupta, a win will force an Armageddon. And this time we see Anna taking a solid approach here, the Queen's Gambit, the exchange variation. She is not going to take any risks in this game, going to play an old classic, a very sensible line. She is not interested in creating any action in this game, so the onus will be on the young Indian player to create something here. As Anna just... I was gonna say, plays normal developing moves. Of course, this is still normal. The knight will now go to e2, but we get a pawn structure that maybe we don't see all the time in these lines. I still like what she's doing, and interestingly, it is Shubhi who is first to invite some trades. And I suspect the bishop on e7 will be captured indeed, or not. The bishop drops back to f2. It's not completely clear what the knight is doing on h5. Shubhi, for her, a draw or a loss are pretty much the same, so at some point she might do something crazy on the king side and just start throwing up all the pawns up the board. But for now she strikes on the queen side first with c5. But this is, honestly, this is a dream of a position in a game where you just need a draw. There is this long-term weakness, this IQP on d5 that she is gonna gang up on, probably with everything she has. Black for now is condemned to just keeping things together. And yeah, as I say, Anna, I think, will be very, very happy, and even happier now as everything has been traded off. She herself decided she was happy to make those trades. I think if the situation was different, if it wasn't game 4, she would have gone another way. But given the match situation, I very much like what she is doing here. That pawn eventually, like if it had been captured on the previous move, well, we're moving past that at a quick pace, but Anna did move her queen back to b3 to keep everything nice and protected. The bishops have come off, and I think she's getting closer and closer to the spot, the Tokyo spot, as it's hard to see how black is gonna be able to make anything happen. I have to say I'm a little surprised by how Shubhi played this position. Of course, it is tough as black when you're in a must-win situation, but it feels to me like she didn't try something to scare Anna, which is, of course, easier said than done. But right now, Anna has everything under control, and of course, Shubhi will fight on until the end. But oh, I didn't even see that white has an extra pawn. When did that happened? A long time ago. Was that just those weren't trades that happened in the center. That was just a pawn dropping. My apologies. It's clearly been a long day for me too. I felt that even without an extra pawn, this was a dream for white. But with the extra pawn, even more of a dream. Even more of a dream for Anna Sargsyan, who only needs a draw here. Barring a miracle, she will get the result she's looking for. The only thing she needs to watch out for are the dark squares around her king, but we see that she is very aware of that. Queen f6 was met by queen e3, keeping an eye on this f4 square. And the problem that black is facing is black only has a queen and a rook, which is not enough material to truly make something happen. And now that the pawns have been pushed, that makes the king extra safe. And yeah, we're inching closer and closer to Anna Sargsyan booking flights to Tokyo momentarily. King h7 is the only move. And then what? Where is the... This isn't it. This isn't the killer blow. What happens after queen c2? Is there at least a... There should be at least a perpetual, surely. I think white is ready to step in for the kill. The problem is I'm sure white is looking maybe even for perpetuals, or looking for ways to safely convert this. That doesn't involve f5. I like this move, queen d6, a lot. She is gonna force the queens off, and that is going to be that. She should win the endgame, but she's never going to lose the endgame. Queen d6, I think, is the move that's going to officially end this match, so to say. Yeah, because we now have a rook ending with 2 extra pawns for white. She's also up over a minute on the clock. I'm not gonna congratulate Anna just yet, because we've seen some jinxes, some big jinxes in the chess world before, but this one, for a player of her level, it really is child's play. You're just gonna push the pawn, move the rook up, get a new queen, and that will be that. Last few desperate checks. Careful not to move backward and run into a checkmate, but I think after king h3 we will see a resignation here. And that is indeed what happens. Congratulations to Anna Sargsyan from the US, who has qualified to the Asia event in Tokyo, Japan, 1 month from now. What a performance today by Anna. And yes, well, congratulations. And we're going to see the final moments of Alua Nurman, the match for 3rd place. Remember, Alua Nurman currently leading 2-1. She did lose game 3 though. So all she needs is not to lose this one. It looks like she is in a winning position here with 2 extra pawns. Also an open white king, while her king is nice and safely tucked away on g8. So it looks like we're not gonna get another Armageddon in this final stage of the tournament, as Sargsyan has qualified to Tokyo, and it looks like Alua Nurman is about to take third place. The game is still going. I see in the chat Kuto is sending his congratulations, as is Takmesher. Yes, indeed, congratulations to Anna, and it will be a pleasure seeing her in Tokyo. Suddenly this endgame might no longer be winning when these two pawns come off. This will now go on for a little bit longer than I was expecting it, but considering that Alua only needs a draw, it will still be enough. She might not win the game, but I don't think she will lose it. So we saw both players here. Well, black got a new queen, the pawns came off the board. And Anna still has an extra pawn. It's no, Alua, sorry, still has an extra pawn. It's probably no longer winning at all, but she won't mind too much, as a draw is still enough to see her through this match and take third place. I wonder if we will see a draw offer in this endgame. Oh. No more draw offer, because suddenly the bishop can force the exchange against the knight, and the resulting king and pawn endgame will be winning, but no longer. F4 was the only win. I don't know how obvious that was, but suddenly after king f4 we're back to drawing territory. Again, at the end of the day, that is neither here nor there, because Alua only needed a draw. She might be tiniest bit upset, but at the end of the day, it's going to be enough for third place, as a draw is now officially agreed. So once again, a huge congratulations to Anna Sargsyan, who is the winner of the qualifier. She will be facing, well, the four players that are confirmed for Tokyo so far are Antonetta Stefanova, Alexandra Kosteniuk, Vaishali and Katerina Lagno. Now they are joined by Anna Sargsyan. We are very excited to see the tour kick off in Japan a month from now. There will be other online qualifiers soon, as the tournament also has stages happening in Europe, in Africa and in the Americas. So this is just the beginning. I want to thank everyone for watching. Make sure to keep an eye on the social media channels of WR Chess. You can also keep an eye on Vadim Rosenstein's accounts, as a lot of announcements are coming out at the moment. Plenty to look forward to. And let me just see, I'm just gonna pull up the final standings of this qualifier knockout, and then I shall bid you a good rest of your day. There we go. Here are the final results. Anna Sargsyan winning the final with a 3-1 score, and Alua Nurman taking third place with a 1.5 win. As I said, that final stage was the only one where we ended up not having Armageddons. We were really treated to some really fighting, really fun chess today, and I for one am looking forward to seeing plenty more in the future. For now, that's all from us. Thank you so much once again to all of you for watching, and as I said, keep an eye out on our socials for plenty more to come in the near future. For now, it's been a pleasure hosting this event today. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye bye.